Test administration procedures. All test administrators will have a roster. You need to make sure that only the students that are on your list are in your room when you begin the testing directions. We have lots of students that are pulled out for small group, and they need to be in the appropriate place prior to starting the directions. Please make sure computers are all turned off. Attendance is going to be taken by paper. Prior to handing out the test, you need to make sure that you've posted your no cell phone sign in your room, and make sure that students have silenced their cell phone and put them in their locker. Make sure that the student's testing area is cleared. They should only have a pencil. Their water and their non-messy snack needs to be in a central location, so that whenever you take a snack break, you've already picked up all their testing materials so that there's no chance of spilling something or getting something on the answer document or test booklet. Make sure that students bring a book to read, and those need to be placed at the front of the room or somewhere in a location to where once they are done, they've raised their hand and you come and pick up their testing materials and they are finished, they can go and get the book to read. Once they've had a book to read and turn in the material, they cannot have that book or answer document back. Make sure that your cell phone is silenced so that there's no phone that goes off. If there is some kind of emergency and you need to use your phone, please do not use your phone in the room. That can be a testing irregularity. Place that needs assistant red sign out, and we'll get someone that can be in there to appropriately monitor the room. Make sure you fill in the names and locations of the students on your seating chart. Something that is new this year, please make sure that the testing subject and grade level is written at the top of your seating chart. And then don't forget to put that testing sign in your window. The directions for writing day 1 begin on page 45 in your test administrator manual. For writing day 2 is page 53. For 5th grade reading, page 61. And those of you giving oral administration on page 143. You need to make sure you've read through all of the directions prior to the testing day so you're very familiar with the directions. 4th grade writing information. On day 1, they can work multiple choice section or composition section in whatever order works best for them. They are just not permitted to go into day 2 portion. You have to do the active monitoring and make sure that they're not opening the wrong section. Students may work through day 2 multiple choice and composition sections in the order that works best for them, but they are not permitted to go back to day 1. It can be a testing irregularity if they go back, so you have to be walking around and make sure that they are in the correct section of their booklet and they're only answering things in the correct section on their answer document. If you catch this, if you see this, immediately put a needs assistance sign out and let me know, and we'll have to determine if you caught it early enough for it not to be a testing irregularity. Please just keep a special eye on that. These are things you have to make sure that you're ensuring. You are allowed to read aloud or sign the writing prompt for any students that request assistance, but at no time are you able to discuss a student's composition with them. You are not allowed to elaborate on the prompts, give any opening or closing sentences, give an outline for organizing, help them develop their composition, or translate it to another language. Those would all be serious testing irregularities. It's just not worth it. If they ask you to repeat or to read the writing prompt to them, you may do so, but read it verbatim, please. Something new for this year for the written composition, you'll notice in the directions that it does say what type of composition it is. For example, then turn to the next page to find the personal narrative. And then they find on their answer document the corresponding symbols. So for the personal narrative, it is triangles, and they find the triangles to make sure that they're writing their composition in the correct spot. So day 1 is personal narrative, day 2 is expository, and that is different from last year. They did not let us know which day would be which. Okay, moving on. This is a reminder of what it looks like, the 4th grade writing. Remember, there's nothing bubbled in. Everything is pre-coded on this label. Please make sure that students do not bubble in anything over here because it overrides the information that we've taken time to make sure is already correct over here. The only thing they should be filling in is when the directions tell them to fill in their test booklet, which you'll be monitoring and making sure they do correctly. these are all things that we discussed as far as making sure that you need to verify that students have access only to the allowable materials and ensure that they're in the correct part of their answer document or their test booklet. Students are not allowed to return to any section that they've worked on the previous day. You're not able to discuss individual test questions with them. Make sure that they're using a number 2 pencil and that answers are not that are marked in the test booklet are not scored. So if you see that a student is not bubbling in on the answer document, this is your go-to statement. Remember that you must record your responses on the answer documents. Students are not allowed to work on any of it after the time limit has expired. And then only students are allowed to erase stray marks or darken. You may not point out anything that you see on there. If it's really light, you can only say, be sure to erase any stray marks that you might have accidentally made on your answer document if you see things like that. But you cannot bubble anything in. You cannot point out any stray marks and things like that. Reinforcing and reviewing testing strategies. You cannot do that, not even before the directions are read. We cannot go over any testing strategies. We have those covered up for a reason. We're not allowed to remind them that on the testing day at any time. You must alert the students of how much time they have left, so you're going to let them know in 1 hour intervals. You can write that on the board and say that aloud, and then if desired in shorter intervals, which I would definitely recommend once it gets past an hour, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then a minute countdown, and reminding them that, going back to that statement, that, be sure to erase any stray marks, be sure that you, remember that you must record your responses on the answer document. Students must remain seated. At no time should they be carrying their testing materials if they have to move rooms or anything like that. That is a testing irregularity. But within the classroom, best practice is for them to raise their hand and you go and pick up their testing materials and then make sure that it's complete, and then they can get their testing, their reading material. Emergency procedures. We will not be planning any kind of drills on testing day. So if an emergency procedures or a a fire alarm goes off, we need to follow all of our regular emergency procedures. Safety is number 1. As soon as the last person is finished testing in your room, you need to make sure you write your room number with the expo marker on the all students finished testing sign with that expo marker. And put the needs assistance card out so that you can bring your bucket to me. And please don't forget to put in your testing sign so that we're ready to go for the next day. For answer documents, here's what the 5th grade STAAR answer document looks like. You're going to be bubbling in, it should be bubbled in that English is what they're taking, so make sure and double check that. You're going to fill in the form number, not the students, because it's very important, and bubble in the corresponding numbers. Make sure that anything concerning math for 5th grade is just completely kept blank. For the reading, it'll, here's at the top where it tells you to be, it gives in the directions, it tells the students to write in their booklet number. You're going to monitor that, make sure it's done correctly. And here's kind of where you can see the location of the form number and everything whenever you can look at the whole document. All right, you're also going to make sure with the reading that you are marking if they completed it, mark it as scored with the S. Or A if they're absent. Here's the score codes, S that they tested, A for absent, and you'll only mark O if I tell you to. That's for if something came up, there was, they left during testing because of illness, testing irregularity, something like that. Special ed and ELL accommodations. I will have all this already filled in. Please don't change anything on here. I just want you to be aware so that if you see something that you have a question about or you're kind of double checking me, then please talk to me about it because there may be a reason for that. GA is general accommodation. This is not for a testing procedure. This is like a supplemental aid, something that's not here. BR is for Braille. We do not have any of those. LP is large print. We do not have any of those so far. OA, we do have students that take oral administration, so those should be filled out for any that have that. But again, if you have a question, let me know and I will fill that out. XD is extra day. We do not have any students needing an extra day. We do have students that have some linguistic accommodation, so if they have a dictionary, things like that, those things should be filled out over here. So if it's not, please notify me, let me know. This concludes this part of the stations.